Hi, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Google Cloud Platform podcast. I'm Francesc and Mark, and I'm here with my co-host, Mark Mendel. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Francesc. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Good start of the year. Brand new podcast episode.
Yeah, finally. Took a couple weeks extra, but I'm finally back to the United States, and I'm actually very excited about this episode.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah. Before we even talk about what the main content's going to be, let's start with the cool thing of the week.
The cool thing of the week I like a lot. I'm definitely a big fan of the command line. Especially being a Linux user as well. And I really like the blog post we're seeing today of the top 5 power features of the Google Cloud CLI.
Yeah.
There are some tricks in here that I didn't know about that I thought were particularly impressive.
Yeah, especially if you are a command line person, and especially if you know how to use awk and sort and all of these little tools that you can use very well, you can find out really cool stuff quite easily.
The nice thing is actually there's stuff in the Google Cloud command line interface that don't require you to use like sed or awk. You can actually tell it to format stuff in like CSV or JSON just through the command line options.
Oh, that's very nice.
You can push it to like all sorts of different things. It's really impressive. I've been a long time user of the code completions that you can get through ZSH and Bash, but
yeah, actually, you got me hooked on ZSH, and that's how I discovered the code completion and the code completion. Sorry, the auto completion.
Yeah.
The impressive thing about the auto completion is that it auto completes on many things.
Yes.
Not only the commands themselves, but also like instance names and
like zones
and regions, which is great because I never remember how to write regions. I never remember where the dash go. So
yeah, or what was my compute instance name, or like stuff like that.
What
is that? I have one I'm going to add to the list. This isn't mine. This is a coworker's of ours, Sandeep. He came up with a nice way of, and this does use awk, but we'll put it in the show notes, that literally lets you pull out what your project name is from your config file. I found that particularly useful when writing like bash scripts and make files where that project detail has to be sort of in that as an argument for certain things.
Yeah, that's very nice. Actually, I could definitely see that as part of some deployment script or some build part. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah. No, well, we're commonly building, examples and stuff where they have to work on either our project or somebody else's, so we can't just hard code a project ID.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that. I've hard coded many project IDs many times. And then when you want to open source it, you're like, yeah.
Or you're working on your staging project and then you're putting it in your prod project and then you're like, oh man, now I have to like do this. Yeah, it's bad.
Definitely useful. We'll add that little command on top on the show notes in addition to the link to this article. Okay, so that was our first cool thing of the year. Cool thing of the year.
That was our first cool thing of the year.
Cool thing of the year. There you go. And now we're going to pass to this amazing interview. I personally had lots of fun doing it.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, I think that Ram is a very interesting guy. He knows a lot about many things.
Yep.
And we're actually going to be talking about one of the coolest APIs that I think we have.
Cloud Vision API. Very exciting stuff.
So I say we just go for it.
Sounds good. We are joined today by a very special guest. I'm very excited to have him here with us today. It is Ram Ramanathan. He is the product manager for Google Cloud Vision API. Thank you so much for joining us, Ram.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, an absolute pleasure. And I did manage to pronounce your name correctly.
Yes, you did.
Wonderful. I like getting that right. That makes me happy. So for those people who aren't familiar with you and what you do you want to give us a little bit of your background and tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm a product manager in the Google Cloud Platform. I look after some of our machine learning technologies. In particular, we just released our Google Cloud Vision API. It's one of our key products that I manage. And I've spent a lot of time in the technology space, in a variety of different companies, both in the Bay Area and in Seattle. And I'm based in Seattle.
Pretty cool. So you've got a long history of sort of doing machine learning type stuff?
That's right. Initially started off a lot in the business intelligence space, thinking about how users can make sense of all the data they collect, and then moving on to machine learning in the last few years.
Nice. Could you give us a little bit of a general idea of So we have machine learning and business intelligence and so on. And then on top of that, there's Cloud Vision API. What is it
Yep.
and how is it related to machine learning?
Sure. Google Cloud Vision APIs really provides an easy way for developers to understand images, right? Basically, the way it works is we encapsulate a lot of powerful machine learning models that help identify patterns in images and then apply that to your own images. So you can, it's basically the same technology that powers things like Google Photos today. So in Google Photos, you are able to search on your own photos for things like beaches or things with photos of your favorite dog. And the way it does that it basically understands a pattern in your image for what a dog is or what a beach is, and so it's able to apply that pattern across your entire image set. So what we've done in Vision API is basically encapsulate similar models like that and provide that as easy to use APIs so the developer doesn't need to worry about all the machine learning complexity and the sophistication, but really just focus on, hey, here are my images, help me understand what are the contents of the image.
Okay.
So it's really built on a powerful machine learning set of models, but we provide it to you as easy to use REST API.
Nice. Cool. No, I've definitely become a big fan of Google Photos, especially. My favorite search for some reason, I like looking at grass. I find it amazing that like its pictures, like it'll give me like big broad sweeps and at the same time like close-ups of my dog lying in grass, like just like blades of grass, and it just picks it out and it feels like magic. It feels like absolute magic. So that's really cool. So all right, so what does that kind of translate to? So if I'm a user of the Google Vision API, I guess I'm sending it some kind of image and then it's sending me, what does it send me back? What do I get?
Sure. Basically, what we do is we've exposed a set of 6 powerful features. Like based on the features that we provide are things like, one is label detection. So basically, if you give us an image and you choose label detection, we are able to tag an image with across a wide or thousands of different entities that we recognize, and we provide that back to you with the description of the entity and a confidence score of how comfortable we think that this entity actually exists in your image. Another aspect is, for example, we're able to do things like OCR, optical character recognition. So if you want to read text in your read the text in your image, we can apply that feature on your image, and as part of the JSON response, you will get back the text that we were able to identify in the image. We do automatic language detections of what language the text belongs to, and we then provide you a bounding polybox with the XY coordinates around where we think the text exists inside your image. So we similarly provide other set of APIs like facial detection, which is able to detect the faces inside a photo, along with the associated emotions of that face. Landmark, we're able to detect a wide variety of different natural and man-made landmarks, and logo detection, which is able to detect product logos inside an image. Another aspect is for folks who do a lot of crowdsourcing of images. Basically, their users upload images. A common use case is, hey, can I ensure that I can moderate whether images have adult content or violent content? So our safe search annotation, powered by the same technology that powers our Google safe search in image search, is able to detect things like whether an image has adult content in it or whether an image has violent content in it. And we give you back a probability of whether a bucket, whether it's very likely to very unlikely.
That is very cool, actually. So because that's actually, so is that the same models that are powering the safe search option on Google Search?
That's right. So I mean, it's a similar set of models, but technology. But you can imagine that's like many of the technology that powers things around Google Safe Search to technologies that power Google Photos. We kind of we encapsulate some of those technologies through our API.
That's really awesome. I can see a lot of people working that need actually that API, and the fact that they can use it out of the box, just like, is this adult content or not? Like with a simple REST API. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. No, that's really cool. And you talked a little sort of about face detection. I did happen to see, and we got a nice demo the other day from Kaz, one of our teammates, who helped work on the Cloud Vision bot, which is a cute little bot that when it detects your face, And if you smile at it, it heads towards you. And if you frown at it, it runs away from you, which I thought was really, really cool.
That's right.
It's really cool. I tried with it, but for some reason, even though I was smiling, it was just ignoring me. Then we found that the problem was that there was no Wi-Fi. But
Sure. You just don't have a recognizable face, quite clearly.
The smile is not attractive enough for bots.
No, that's totally fair enough. Talking about face detection now, I can see here that facial recognition isn't supported. Do we want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think one of the things that we are focused on is user privacy, and so what we provide on the Google Cloud platform is just ability to detect faces. We don't do facial recognition. So as part of a face detection, we're able to detect the faces inside the image, and we also detect the associated emotions of the face, whether the person is smiling, not smiling. We don't store both the images or the associated information. We return back to the user on Google servers. We return it back to the end user. So in that way, we're ensuring that the user has control over their data and associated responses.
That sounds pretty reasonable.
That's very interesting. So basically, we're able to see what if there's any face, what are they doing, but we don't know who they are. Basically,
that's correct.
Okay,
exactly.
That seems pretty fair.
Yeah,
that seems pretty fair. No, that sounds really good. So I'm actually quite curious. You've probably got a bit more visibility than we do on this. Like, what sort of things are people doing with this? Like, what do you envisage people? Like, I'm sure you've got some ideas. I mean, this seems like it's one of these crazy things you could do so much with.
Yeah. There is a wide variety of use cases. I think we can the initial use case is really a lot of users wanting to use label detection to really manage all their images, right? How do you build metadata on this large catalog of images that you may have? That's a common use case that folks want to use that for. So maybe a lot of media companies who want to build large media catalogs, or even companies who build websites, so just to manage what's the content of my images. Another use case is folks who really want to do things like on content moderation, right? In the case of crowdsourced content, first of all, you still use label detection to understand what are the contents of the images, but also filter out or be able to moderate adult content and violent content from crowdsourced, so they don't share those images with their broader user community. The other use cases is really thinking about how to leverage OCR in a variety of scenarios, both from like transactional applications, people who want to do things around reading text from receipts or things, and being able to use the text from these images, and then do things around and then do intelligent things based on the text that we can retrieve from the image. And the fourth use case, of course, is just this is more of a more interesting use case around image sentiment analysis. A lot of folks have been using text to do sentiment analysis on what customers' reception are of their products. But with the power of combination of both image detection, emotions from the face, to product logo detection, people can start understanding how is my product logo associated with people who are either smiling or sad, and what are the other contents of the image at a certain point in time.
Now that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, so the key use cases are, OCR, thinking about extracting text, image metadata management, image sentiment analysis, and content moderation.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to think about places where I've seen similar things happen where people have used crowdsourcing to do this sort of stuff, where you get your audience to flag whether it's inappropriate or tag what sort of data is inside this image, whereas now you can sort of look at doing that automatically, which I think is pretty powerful. I'm also just looking forward to a time where I can just send a receipt to my expense provider, and it's like, oh, I know what that is now. Yes, I'm going to set that in for you, rather than me having to do all that work. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
That'd be really awesome. Yeah, so we were talking that these are basically models that have been trained by Google, and before we had people maybe like training those models, right? Is this based on something that we talked before in one of the cool things of the week? It's TensorFlow, and how is it based on? Could you explain a little bit what's the relationship between TensorFlow and Google, not Google Photos, Google Cloud Vision API?
Sure. Basically, a lot of the one of the things is the way all these machine learning models evolved in the recent future to enable a lot of these powerful scenarios is really advances in deep learning. right? So deep learning enables you to really look at unstructured data, whether it's images, videos, and really start identifying patterns in those in your data set. And within Google, we have been we've been using a framework called Tensorflow to drive a lot of these scenarios. And we recently open sourced that in November, and we had great reception, a lot of great user adoption. And so internally, Google, we've been leveraging frameworks like that to build these models. And what we've done on the Vision API is basically just providing wrappers around that for users to consume it. So you can imagine that people use deep learning frameworks to build these sophisticated models, and then basically once the models are ready to go, we're exposing that as REST APIs.
That's very cool.
That's very cool.
Cool. So could you tell us a little bit more about what other products use TensorFlow at Google?
Yep. No, we inside Google, we're using TensorFlow from everything from speech recognition in the Google app, right, in the OK Google, to how we do things around smart reply in inboxes. That's a new feature we just introduced in Inbox that allows you to intelligently put common responses to your to emails coming into your inbox, to how we do image searches in Google Photos. One of the interesting things about TensorFlow is its ability to adapt to a broad set of scenarios, and also the fact that its ability to run not just on a single smartphone, but across thousands of computers and data centers. So it's the ability to scale, where you can now imagine some of these models running on your Android device out of the box.
Wow. Cool. Something really interesting that you mentioned is that TensorFlow is powering speech recognition. And I know that speech recognition is a very hard thing to do. Like, I'm always impressed that my phone understands me. Really.
Yeah.
Like, with my accent, that's a very,
Actually,
very
it's
good
impressive
job.
that it understands you, and it understands me, and it understands everyone else as well, with all our accents.
That's really interesting. But the interesting thing is that it doesn't necessarily run through an API, right? Like, it actually runs on your phone.
That's right.
So could you tell us a little bit about how do we even do that? Like the fact that there's so much information about a model, but still fits on your phone.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the things that we're enabling through that the TensorFlow framework enables. Its ability to support a wide variety of devices. So basically you can imagine people are using really sophisticated hardware to train these large speech models, and then you can imagine the power of TensorFlow is we can take that model and actually just enable it to run on your mobile device. Over time, this allows users to think about more intelligent scenarios where they can drive faster response and more real time, integrate machine learning real time into user workflows. Right, that's really where we can start driving more intelligent user workflows where. It just becomes pervasive. A great example is what we're doing that in Google Now, where we just give you these flashcards as part of your user workflow. But that's just a tip of the iceberg, right? What we can do with TensorFlow is make more apps that intelligent. That's really our focus.
Okay, so my next question then is, since the robot didn't recognize my smile because the Wi-Fi was down, could it be possible to have Google Cloud Vision API as not an API, but something that you can install it, or is the model way too big?
Yeah, actually, we do have subsets of what the API supports on the cloud on Android devices. We've recently released what we call the Mobile Vision Sdk. That's part of the Android SDK.
That's awesome.
Where we provide things around similar things like around face detection. We provide some of the aspects around some of the emotion models that we're providing on detecting smiles, and we're also providing things around additional aspects like that's very mobile scenario focused, like things like barcode recognition.
That's really, really cool.
Just looking at that now, I didn't even realize that exists. That's really cool.
That's the good thing about this.
Yeah, it's just on developers.google.com/vision.
Cool. Yeah, we'll add links to that on the show notes. Yeah, I was saying that's the good thing about this podcast. Is every single episode I learn new stuff.
I learn new stuff. Yeah, exactly. No, that's really fun. All right, wonderful. So I guess, is there anything about like Vision API or TensorFlow or machine learning that you wanted to talk about that we haven't really sort of covered yet?
No, you guys, in a lot of the things, I think, really where we are is we're at the infancy of how people are bringing machine learning into their applications. One of the things is, machine learning has really been used in a lot of kind of edge scenarios or requires a lot amounts of compute and PhDs to make it functional. And really, what we're looking to do is how do we take this knowledge, make it pervasive, so people really start incorporating machine learning into their everyday applications and make all user workflows more intelligent and
sort of bring it down to the consumer level so it becomes easy to use.
Yeah.
I know I've looked at machine learning just in passing every so often, and every time I do, I'm like, oh, this is scary.
Yeah, there's a very good course on
Coursera.
Yeah,
I've done that.
I tried to go through it. It gets pretty intense really fast.
It's really good though.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good content out there. We're I think more and more. I think more applications will just. I think people will start expecting people have gotten used to how Google now gets these intelligence flashcards out of, and people are getting used to how they can search on photos. And I think it's just they're going to start expecting that in all their other applications over time. And I think the more we can start providing these APIs, I think will make it easier for developers to incorporate that.
Yeah, just make it sort of, I can plug in, take advantage, and just use and be on my way.
That's a great thing about Cloud Vision API is that, yes, machine learning is complicated, and yes, you might need to understand a lot of stuff to train a model correctly.
Yeah.
But hey, if you know how to do curl and use a REST API, you're good.
You're good to go.
Yep.
You're good to go, and you're going to have it. So that's really awesome.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ram, for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. This was a really fun interview.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, Ram. That was a really interesting interview. I know I learned a whole lot during that. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. Got really excited about many other projects that I think we could build on top of that API.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As is always with this podcast, I end up listening to someone. I'm like, oh, man, I got to go play with that thing. It sounds great. But yeah, enough time in the day.
So before we end this amazing episode, let's go with a question of the week.
Yeah, so you brought up an interesting one, which I hadn't really encountered before, which was if you have a file within Google Cloud Storage, but you want to provide temporary access to it. So it's not just public to the internet. You're like, I want it to be available for like an hour or something like that. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so there's actually one way of doing it, which is the normal way, and I've seen people trying to do it. It's kind of not very useful to do, which is you actually add one email to the ACL, to the ACL, the access control list.
Yep.
And then after a while, you remove it.
Okay. Feels manual.
That kind of works. I mean, you can do it with a script. There's REST APIs for that. So that kind of works. And you have the limit of there's only that person that will be able to access that file during the period of time that you want.
So that's like when you want like a specific user to be able to grab it.
Problem with that, the user needs to log in to do it.
Okay, got it.
So depending on what you're trying to do, depending the kind of app you're developing, might be a little bit hard. So not always the perfect solution. Then we have a second solution, which is the one that I wanted to talk about today, which is what we call the signed URLs.
Yep.
So the signed URLs is just an URL that is a way of accessing that resource that is only valid for some period of time.
Okay, so it's totally public, but you can only access it for like an hour or a day or a week.
So you're going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to provide access to that resource, but I'm not going to make it public.
Yeah.
Instead, the only way to access that resource is going to be going through that URL.
Yep.
And after whatever time you choose, 1 hour, 1 minute, whatever you want,
yep,
it will just disappear.
Okay, so that could be really good for like access tokens or something like that, something you want to keep.
I've personally used it for Google Cloud Spin, so that cool demo. We had one thing that we wanted to do is when someone jumps and we have this image that is...
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, we need to visualize it.
Yep.
And we don't want those images to be public.
Yep.
And we visualized the image for like 5 seconds. So what we did was to provide a signed URL that could be valid for like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Then the visualizer is able to show it. And if anyone was able to find that URL, if it's after 30 seconds, sorry, too late.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a really interesting one.
Very useful.
Didn't know that existed. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, and creating them, we'll add a link to the notes. But it's actually really simple. You can do it directly with GSUtil, so the Google Cloud Storage util command.
Yep.
Or you can also do it through REST APIs. Personally, we did it directly on App Engine.
Yep.
So from App Engine, you can call a couple APIs, and that's it.
That just works. That's lovely. Okay, that's really handy to know.
Yep. So, this is the end of the first episode. But before we actually say goodbye,
Yeah.
where can I find you?
Okay, so I'm doing a few interesting things. I will be at the Launch Hackathon in San Francisco. After that, I will be at GDC, the Game Developers Conference, also in San Francisco.
Nice.
And then looks like I will also be in Strata in San Jose. So I'm not really leaving California very much.
Nice. You're not even living like North California, so
No.
it's really not far away. Nice.
I am going back to Australia for a bit of a holiday, but that's not work related. So,
Yeah, it's slightly more far away.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Well, so in a couple of weeks, I'm going to FOSDEM. So it's a really cool conference that takes place in Brussels. I'm going to be managing the Go Dev Room. It's going to be a Go Dev Room. I'm going to be talking there.
Fun.
It's going to be lots of fun. The week after that, I'm going to Paris for the Google Dev Fest.
Nice.
We're going to have a bunch of developers. And if you're going to be around, come say hi. We're going to try to also organize a couple hackathons or workshops. Let's see. I'm still not sure. We're still planning that.
Still planning it.
Yeah, but that's going to be the first week of March.
We're in the same phase with like GDC and Strata. Stuff's going to happen there. It'll be good. It'll be good stuff.
And then I'm actually really excited about this one. I'm going to Dubai. I'm going to Dubai for GopherCon United Emirates. United Arab Emirates.
There you
UAE. That's it. That's
Okay.
it. So yeah, very excited about that one too.
All right. Wonderful.
And otherwise, if you want to contact us and you turn out not to be here in California or somewhere where I'm going to be traveling,
Yep.
there's a couple ways they can contact us.
They can get us by email at hello@gcppodcast.com.
The webpage,
Yeah, gcppodcast.com.
the Twitter,
GCP Podcast.
the subreddit.
/r GCP Podcast.
Good job. And on Google+.
Plus GCP Podcast.
And I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
If you can't reach us through one of those, then I don't know.
Yeah, just let us know. But
yeah.
how do they let us know?
No, they can't let us know.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here again today. That was an awesome episode. Very excited about the rest of the year.
A pleasure as always, and I will see you all next week.
See you next week. Bye.